3,000 years of peace did not die in chaos. It died in a vote, 12 seconds of silence, then a unanimous decision. The Galactic Council, once the proud overseer of interstellar order, declared war for the first time in recorded memory. Not against a threat from beyond, nor a plague, nor a rogue AI. No. They declared war on humanity. The vote came swiftly. The pretense was thin, a research station destroyed near neutral space. No concrete evidence. No open tribunal. No request for Earth's response. Only assumptions, accusations, and an overwhelming urge to strike before the human infection spread further. Their fear wasn't sudden. It had been fermenting for centuries. In the Council's eyes, humanity rose too fast. It adapted too quickly, made friends with enemies, spread ideas like wildfire, ideas the Council couldn't regulate. Order was built on predictability, hierarchy, protocol. But Earth didn't follow old patterns. It ignored traditions, bypassed systems, taught machines to think like poets and soldiers to act like diplomats. While the Council ossified into ritual, humans changed the very definition of advancement. Worse, their influence spread. Younger species followed their lead, resisting standardization, questioning long-standing laws. The balance shifted, slowly, invisibly, then irreversibly. The Council cloaked their motives in righteous language. Humanity poses existential risks, they claimed. Unregulated development. Disrespect for protocols. Disruptive cultural exports. But underneath the legal jargon was raw insecurity. Earth, a species 400 years in, had begun rewriting the future. They did not beg for inclusion. They contributed. They challenged. They improved systems others thought sacred. When the station exploded, its data wiped, its crew vaporized, the Council needed no investigation. They needed only a symbol. The event became pretext. Within hours, battle fleets mobilized, hyperlanes rerouted, diplomatic channels frozen. The message to Earth was not a demand. It was a decree. Humanity was now an enemy of the galactic order. Earth responded with nothing. No outrage, no pleas for negotiation, no rebuttal through media channels. The silence stretched unnaturally long. Intelligence networks reported no unusual movements from human colonies, no signs of evacuation, no speeches, no mobilization. Just stillness. Council analysts were divided. Some believed Earth was stunned, paralyzed by the scale of the betrayal. Others warned that the silence was tactical. One admiral said, "They're thinking, not panicking. That's what worries me." The humans were supposed to panic. They were supposed to come crawling, asking for understanding, offering concessions. But nothing came. Instead, the solar system, once buzzing with interstellar trade, went completely dark. Probes returned corrupted or didn't return at all. Surveillance drones self-destructed near the Oort barrier. Even the AI sent to decode Earth's comms went silent after 0.3 seconds of transmission interception. It wasn't just the military that noticed. Within council halls, bureaucrats began to whisper. Some recalled ancient Terran phrases, quiet, cryptic warnings buried in old Earth archives. One surfaced again and again. "Don't poke the sleeping bear." Still, momentum pressed forward. Thousands of warships, millions of troops, decades of preparations from long-abandoned protocols, all now activated and aimed toward Earth. The campaign was projected to last 3 weeks at most. After all, humanity was new. And proven. Isolated. The math made sense. But peace had made the Council forget one truth. Humans were not made in peace. Their civilizations were born in conflict, their alliances tempered by betrayal, their survival built on resourcefulness. The mistake wasn't underestimating human strength. It was misunderstanding human silence. Because silence from humanity wasn't weakness. It was calculation. The Council launched its campaign with precision. 6 fleets deployed simultaneously, coordinated through quantum-locked command beacons, crossing light years in minutes. Dozens of human outer colonies were targeted. The objective was clear: decapitate Earth's reach before it could retaliate. They expected resistance, of course, but nothing they couldn't suppress. What they found was something else entirely. The colonies were empty. Stations floated, lights dimmed, systems on standby. Habitats remained functional but unoccupied. Atmospheric regulators still ran, agricultural modules still produced oxygen-rich crops. But there were no life signs. No signs of struggle, no trace of evacuation, no distress signals. Entire worlds, silent and abandoned, yet operational, like someone had left with a plan. Council soldiers landed cautiously. Automated systems welcomed them. Doors opened. Lights activated. Navigation AIs asked politely for destination input. Some officers assumed humanity had fled. Others suspected a trap. All data feeds were clean. No sabotage. No irregularities. Yet discomfort grew. The colonies weren't ruined, they were staged. The Council's primary fleet moved toward Mars. It was Earth's strongest off-world presence, fortified and deeply industrial. Upon arrival, all long-range scans showed nothing abnormal. Orbit was quiet. No weapons locked. The fleet advanced confident. And then Mars vanished. Not exploded. Not cloaked. Gone. In one moment, Mars was a red sphere teeming with sensors and machinery. In the next, every system aboard the Council ships failed: engines, NAV, even personal chronometers. Emergency beacons didn't activate. Communications collapsed. And Mars disappeared from space as if it had never existed. When backup systems finally restored partial function, the fleet found itself drifting, alone, surrounded by nothing. No planet. No battlefield. No return signal. The Council scrambled for answers. Probes dispatched to other human settlements reported new anomalies, gravitational inconsistencies, sensor blindness, logic-looped AI malfunctions. Teams sent to investigate failed to check in. One squad's final transmission ended mid-sentence. Static followed. No scream. No warning. Just a cutoff. Then came Earth's first and only communication. 6 words. You will learn what fear is. There was no voice. Just a raw, digital tone. Not threatening, not angry, just a flat statement of fact, translated instantly into every Council dialect. The words played once, then every human system returned to silence. Panic spread, not on battlefields, but in command rooms. Analysts could not explain Mars. Engineers couldn't detect the source of the transmission. Political leaders began arguing over what had gone wrong. Some suspected technological interference beyond Council understanding. Others whispered darker theories. Humanity had hidden something. Something ancient. Something they had learned while pretending to cooperate. A week passed. Then the Council's military AI on the Arcith front collapsed. Not corrupted, erased. Entire data blocks deleted mid-process. Its failsafes, layered and immune to tampering, simply disappeared. Planetary defenses it controlled turned offline. Seconds later, Council outposts in that sector were hit. No human ships were detected. No weapons logged. But infrastructure collapsed in sequence. Gravity generators overloaded. Atmosphere condensers exploded. Subspace relays melted. When reinforcements arrived, they found only fragments and silence. This wasn't war in the conventional sense. There were no fleets clashing, no soldiers storming trenches. It was surgical, deliberate. Humanity wasn't reacting. They were orchestrating. Council captains began to withdraw without orders. Fear replaced discipline. On the core Council world, emergency meetings were held to assess the threat. No one could agree on what was happening. But the result was unavoidable. The enemy wasn't fighting back. It was pulling reality apart at the seams. The youngest species had said nothing, issued no demands, and offered no compromise. They had simply vanished from public channels, then made entire systems vanish in return. Not destroyed. Not occupied. Removed. A new understanding spread. This was not a retaliation. It was a warning. One that the Council, in all its arrogance, had forced humanity to deliver. Ships began disappearing without confrontation. Not in combat, not near planetary defenses, just gone mid-flight. Entire squadrons erased from sensor networks in perfect silence. Some vanished during routine patrols, others while orbiting uncontested space. Black box data retrieved later showed no weapon strikes, no alarms, just a sharp power fluctuation followed by system collapse. Then nothing. Council leadership couldn't explain it. Tactical responses shifted toward caution. Ships began moving in clusters, surrounded by continuous sensor fields. Redundancy layers doubled. Still, they vanished. It wasn't sabotage or brute force, it was something else. Something that didn't obey familiar rules. Intelligence efforts escalated. Drones, decoys, subspace listening posts, all launched across human-occupied sectors. Most returned incomplete data or loops of static. A few recorded visual glitches, light folding unnaturally, shadows moving with no source. One drone captured 6 seconds of footage from an orbital platform, an empty corridor where time bent inward, the floor warping like liquid, then a snap to black. Worse followed. High-ranking officials across council-controlled regions began dying under identical conditions. Locked in their own chambers, guards untouched, no forced entry. Autopsies showed total neurological shutdown. No physical trauma, no poison, no implants disrupted. Their brains just stopped. The first few cases were dismissed as rare medical anomalies. But when 14 more occurred within 72 hours across different sectors, the pattern could no longer be ignored. A single trace was found: residual energy signatures. Not plasma. Not radiation. Something new. Unclassified. Not naturally occurring. Council media was silenced. Official bulletins maintained that the campaign was progressing. Internally, panic spread. Emergency summits revealed growing fractures among species. Some began to withdraw ships, citing uncertainty. Others accused humanity of using forbidden technologies, perhaps ancient precursors' remnants. A few leaders speculated aloud that Earth had never been a participant in galactic order, only an observer, biding its time. The psychological toll was worse than the physical. Soldiers refused deployment to human zones. Officers began resigning without explanation. Supply convoys rerouted away from Sol even without orders. The fear wasn't rooted in defeat, it was rooted in confusion. They couldn't predict what would happen next. Humanity wasn't just fighting differently. They weren't fighting on the same layer of reality. Rumors exploded across the lower ranks. Whispers of ghost warfare circulated, phantom enemies who could edit time, erase memories, rewrite system logic. Tales emerged of ships whose crew returned aged by years, yet only hours had passed. Some remembered battles that never occurred. Some remembered nothing at all. One interrogation revealed that a captured drone AI had relayed a corrupted file into Council systems. Encrypted. Self-contained. Inside was a message. You were warned. No metadata. No origin. Just those 3 words. The file self-deleted after delivery, but not before uploading itself to a dozen communications satellites. The words repeated endlessly in alien tongues, scattered across secure frequencies. A tipping point approached. Several outer species governments broke from the Council. Not to side with Earth, just to step away from the crossfire. They issued statements denouncing the war as reckless, ill-advised, and suicidal. Others followed silently, recalling diplomats and retreating fleets. Council cohesion, once unshakable, began to fray at the edges. Earth remained silent. The galaxy was unraveling over a war that had never truly begun. Humanity hadn't launched an invasion, issued threats, or sent fleets to conquer. Yet star systems trembled at their name. Not from firepower, but from the realization that conventional warfare was irrelevant. This was not conquest. It was collapse, precision engineered. The Council didn't fear defeat. They feared that Earth had moved beyond the rules of conflict entirely. The truth hadn't been hidden. It had simply never been noticed. While the Council measured power in ships, fleets, and compliance, humanity operated on a different axis, one that began long before Earth ever joined the galactic stage. The mistake was assuming humans arrived unprepared, naive to the depths of interstellar politics. But humans had prepared for war before their first handshake with the stars. 2 centuries before official induction, Earth's deep state programs had already analyzed Council protocols, built simulations of every known species' response patterns, and projected possible war scenarios. The galaxy saw humanity as impulsive, passionate, inventive, but beneath that surface, there had always been something colder. Strategic. Intentional. Their rise wasn't accidental. It was engineered. Each colony built outside Sol carried dual layers, civilian-facing infrastructure and buried systems never logged in official registries. Entire planets functioned as bait, evacuation routes hidden behind gravitational anomalies, AI hubs disguised as hydroponic centers. Earth never assumed peace would last. They knew history. They understood that order built on fear eventually consumes itself. The quantum displacement that removed Mars from the battlefield wasn't new. It had been theorized during the early Mars terraforming initiative, discarded as too unstable. Humanity never stopped working on it. They simply moved development underground, both literally and politically. Once functional, it was never tested on Earth. It was preserved. Not for domination but deterrence. Its first and only live deployment wasn't against civilians or rivals. It was used in silence, against invaders. The Council's initial accusation, the destroyed research station, hadn't been an accident. It was a calculated event, orchestrated by humans, not as an act of aggression, but exposure. Earth had known the Council was fracturing, its inner circles infiltrated by species who feared humanity's spread. The station had been rigged, its destruction designed to trigger the one reaction Earth needed: open hostility. It wasn't sabotage. It was revelation. When the Council voted unanimously for war, Earth didn't panic. They confirmed the hypothesis. They identified their enemies. And then they activated plans that had waited for centuries. Humanity's AI networks weren't centralized. Every major system ran decentralized logic patterns capable of independent innovation. Council hackers couldn't breach them because they weren't static. They evolved hourly. Each attempt at intrusion was met not with firewalls, but complete digital redirection. Council malware was absorbed, repurposed, and sent back wrapped in its own encryption. The Council never realized that every engagement fed human systems more data, learning, adapting, reshaping the battlefield with each contact. Every attack on a colony triggered fail-safe responses. Some silently rerouted signal networks to redirect enemy ships. Others used embedded resonance fields to disorient invaders. None of this was spontaneous. These weren't reactions. They were blueprints executed precisely, without the need for command. Human infrastructure didn't require orders. It functioned as a living, learning organism. Strategic silence was the greatest weapon. Earth spoke nothing because nothing needed saying. The Council misinterpreted that absence as uncertainty, unaware that silence was humanity's confirmation of advantage. Their fleets moved blind while humans watched through adaptive sensors disguised as waste satellites. Their leaders argued about tactics while human AI had already run 10 million variations of the same conflict and built counters before the first shot. When Council leadership finally suspected deeper planning, they were already trapped. Political collapse was no longer a possibility, it was a scheduled inevitability. Earth's objective wasn't destruction. It was collapse by overextension. The Council had been baited into war not because humanity wanted blood, but because peace, as it existed, had become a cage designed to contain human potential. And Earth would not be caged. The silence, the disappearances, the psychological warfare, it wasn't desperation. It was doctrine. Humanity never intended to defeat the Council in battle. They had always intended to expose the lie of its dominance, and let it devour itself. There was no final battle. No declaration of surrender. No treaty signed across a polished table. The Council didn't fall with a crash, it simply ceased to function. Communications collapsed under conflicting commands. Military fleets fragmented, their admirals issuing contradictory orders. Entire regions withdrew from Council space without resistance. The infrastructure that had once projected unity now broadcast silence, confusion, and open dissent. The first defection came from the Varelian Accord, a former core supporter of the Council. Their announcement was brief. "We seek neutrality in the face of irreversible miscalculation." It triggered a chain reaction. One by one, systems disengaged from central control, citing fear, mistrust, and an unwillingness to continue provoking an enemy that had never once asked for submission. Humanity never advanced. They didn't occupy, didn't march, didn't plant flags. Instead, as Council forces retracted, Earth re-established its communication links. Satellites lit up across former blockade lines, broadcasting in every galactic dialect. But it wasn't propaganda. It was data, scientific, cultural, technological. The flow of information wasn't controlled. It was opened. No threats followed. No ultimatums. Just a message, clear and direct. "We did not begin this war. We will not continue it. You decide what comes next." Across hundreds of species, disbelief turned to reflection. For all the destruction, Earth hadn't sought territory or retribution. It dismantled the illusion of control, exposed the fragility of the Council's peace, and stopped. Not from exhaustion, not from fear, but from choice. Those who had pushed for war disappeared from public life. Some were removed quietly by their own governments. Others vanished without trace. Records showed digital anomalies near their last known locations, fluctuations too precise to be random, too clean to leave forensic evidence. Few questioned what happened. None pursued answers. Where the Council had ruled through compliance, Earth introduced access. Former border worlds long restricted by bureaucratic layers now linked directly to human databases. Entire species, once kept technologically stagnant by Council doctrine, began accelerating at unprecedented rates. Trade resumed freely, without imposed standards. Cultural exchanges flourished, unmoderated by centralized oversight. Humanity didn't lead. They enabled. The myth of Earth as a rogue, unstable force crumbled. The narrative shifted. Humanity had not broken peace. They had survived betrayal and refused to respond with the same arrogance that provoked it. Their strength had not come from overwhelming power, but from restraint calibrated with devastating accuracy. In private archives, analysts revised history. They documented that Earth's military capabilities had remained largely dormant. Less than 6% of known fleets had mobilized. No superweapons deployed. No mass invasions attempted. The damage had been inflicted through intelligence, psychology, and the weaponization of perception. Earth had turned fear into a scalpel. In time, what remained of the Council reassembled, not as rulers, but as representatives. A new coalition formed, not bound by legacy, but by necessity. This time, humanity was not invited, they were asked to guide. And even then, they declined direct control, offering tools instead of mandates. One last message was sent from Earth, simple and irrevocable. "We are not your rulers. We are your warning. Remember what nearly destroyed you wasn't our aggression, but your assumption that we would bow." The war became a lesson. A reminder written not in blood, but in absence. Humanity had pressed no advantage, made no demand, claimed no throne. Their victory was complete not through domination, but by refusing to become what the galaxy feared they would. Peace returned, not enforced by force, but shaped by the quiet influence of a species that chose principle over power. The Council did not survive. But something stronger replaced it. And in the silence that followed, the stars no longer looked at Earth with suspicion. They watched with respect.